Welcome back, future adventurer. Hopefully, after the last video, you started thinking about what class you might want to be, what species or race you might want to be. Today, along with the recipe, it's important to talk about some of the other basic things that we're going to go over. Things like armor class, your hit points, why you have to roll those six-sided dice. So, let's start at the beginning. Why do we roll those six-sided dice? We're going to put together our statistics, or rather, our stats. Strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Not all of them are important for every class. That's important. You don't need a barbarian with a high intelligence. That's why one of mine can't speak in anything bigger than 4-letter words. It's just funny that way. So, strength is obvious. That's your brawn. That's how bulky you are, how much you can lift, push, how hard you can hit, things like that. Dexterity, that's important. It's going to tell you all about how acrobatic you are, how fast you can be. Your constitution, that's how much health you have, how vigorous you are in all of the adventures you take. Your intelligence and wisdom, those are two very important things. Not for every class though. Intelligent wisdom, that is usually for your spellcasters. Intelligence, for example, is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. Charisma, can you talk your way out of a situation? Are you able to persuade people to the way you think? It's important. And in case you're wondering, yes, it's really cold where I am. It's also really windy, hence my windblown look today. It is what it is. I hope you're warm where you are. So, getting back to it. We haven't picked a class yet. We haven't picked a race. That comes in just a little bit. This is all the stuff that we have to be thinking about before we make that character. So, what I will typically do, I will roll those six-sided dice. I roll 4d6 dice 6 times, and I record the numbers. Drop the lowest one, that gives you your score. Coming up, I'll show you how to actually go and put that in and make that character. Once you've made your character, that's when all the fun happens. Now, the species, races that we have to think about, there's a lot. There's more than I can cover in a year's worth of videos. But in the Player's Handbook, this is the old one. I recommend picking it up. This is the new one. It is the old one, but with some modifications to it. It plays out a little easier, but it changes the rule sets from the previous version. It's a big hullabaloo right now. Pick which one you want. If you're brand new, start with the new book. It's just easier. Get yourself a DM like myself who will work with you and figure that out. Now, on to the races. We start off with your dwarf. Your dwarf, small, brawny, big beard, very much Gimli from Lord of the Rings. Hopefully you've seen that. The bright side to picking a dwarf, they get a +2 in constitution. That's great. That means they're better for your frontline kind of characters. Your fighter, your paladin or cleric, even a barbarian. That's a good choice. Your elves, again, Legolas, Lord of the Rings. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, if you don't know that yet. I will reference that many, many times throughout all of this. They get a +2 in dexterity. Think about that. Legolas. Yep. Sliding down that Oliphant. Yeah, that was a thing. They get +2 in dexterity, like I said. Wood elves. There are different branches of elves. There's a wood elf, those who live in the woodland realm. They get a +1 in wisdom as well. There's high elves, those who are a little bit, let's say, Galadriel. she gets a +1 in intelligence. And then there are the Dark Elves, known as Drow, D-R-O-W. They don't really have a representation in Lord of the Rings, but let's just figure those as those who have lived underground and made a society underground. Still very much like dwarves, as they are hardy, but they are, again, elves that can not function too well in daylight. So there's that. Ironically, they get a +1 in charisma. I didn't write this. Halflings. Think your hobbits. Strangely enough, they get a +2 in dexterity. That's a good thing. There's a branch off of that called the Lightfoots. They get a +1 in charisma. Now, the general, humans, they get a +1 in every statistic. So they're not going to be great at anything, but they're good overall. Kind of makes sense. There is a class called the Dragonborn, a species called the Dragonborn, that are basically that. They are a humanoid dragon in appearance. They get a +2 in strength and a +1 in charisma. There are gnomes, not like our garden gnomes that we think of with the little statues. They do only stand a few feet tall, but again, they are a gnome. They get a +2 in intelligence. Now, they also have an offshoot, which is a forest or a rock gnome. The forest gets a +1 in dexterity, whereas the rock gnome gets a +1 in constitution. These are all little things that you have to start thinking about when you're going to be playing D&D and putting a character together. You could be like me and you've played it for so long that you're just like, whatever, I'm going to put a completely random thing together and enjoy that. It's fun, it's silly. Some people will go for what's called min-maxing, where they minimize the downside of the character, but they will max what the characters are really, really great at. If that's what you want to do, go for it. The game is just that. It's a game. It's there to be fun. Back to it, there is the half-elves, which is a human-elf kind of hybrid in the game. They are not looked upon too favorably, but they can still be a really, really fun class to play. They get a +2 in constitution, +2 in charisma, and then they get 2 +1 markers in any 2 statistics that you want. So if you have the +2 in charisma, you could be like, I want them to be very dexterous, so I'm going to throw a +1 in dexterity, and then another +1 in constitution so that they have a little bit more health points. All perfectly acceptable. The last one that we'll talk briefly on is the half-orc. Half-orcs. It's a +2 in strength and a +1 in constitution. They were made to be that frontline barbarian fighter, and Lord love them. They're great. Now, all that being said, that's a lot to think about. So, with what we talked about in the first video, ponder that. The species, think about that. The other thing that we need to discuss is armor class. Casters, wizards, sorcerers are only going to be wearing cloth. That's it. Especially to start the game, that's all they can wear. Anything else, it makes it too cumbersome for them to cast their spells. They need their hands, they need their voice, they need to be able to move. That's how it goes. If you're something like a rogue, you can wear leather. Leather gives you a pretty okay armor class. You're looking at the 12 to 14, depending on what kind of leather it is. Then you get into like your scale mail, your plate, things of that nature. That's what really bumps up your AC. The other parts of that is your dexterity can be added to the armor class. Hopefully we won't go too far without me doing like a demo of how to put all this together. And it'll be pretty straightforward. The weapons. Not every class gets to use every weapon. Yeah, your class is, it depends on what you pick, but that'll make you proficient in certain weapons. Now they've made it a lot easier, kind of, with the new version of the game, so 5.5, whereas you can train in certain things. That's fantastic. In the old one, yes, you could do that, but that was kind of up to your DM's discretion, how much downtime you had and how much you were willing to do that for the game. New version, you're still assigned like basic weapons that you can use. And for the most part, it's true across the board. Sorcerers, obviously, they're gonna have staves. Rogues are great with like daggers, imagine that. Fighters, you're trained to use everything. Barbarians, one-hand, two-hand weapons, that's your bread and butter. Rangers, I think you've already figured it out, need to have a bow and arrow or something of that nature. If your DM is running a campaign that has pistols or rifles, there you go. You need to be proficient with those. But that, again, comes down to what game are you playing? Outside of that, that's a lot to think about. So, be thinking, do you want to have a melee or a caster? Do you want to be up front? Do you want to be up back? Do you want to be in the thick of things? Do you want to be in the back, kind of like raining down fire? Or do you want to be someone who is kind of running in between, helping out those who need it? One of the first classes that we're going to talk about is going to be a bard. I love bards. I think they were the most underrated class for years. And only in the last year or two have people really latched onto them going, this is a class that can do a lot. And it is. I did promise a recipe. So here we go. Grab a piece of paper and a pencil, pause the video, come back. I'm glad you're back. This is pumpkin juice. If you're a Harry Potter fan, yes, this is something that's going to look a lot like it from there. So here we go. 1 15-ounce can of pumpkin puree, 1/2 cup, that's just half a cup of brown sugar. I pack it in. 1/2 cup granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon of vanilla, 1 tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. I put those in a pitcher, stir them so that they get all nice and combined and you can't really see or feel the sugar in there. Once you've got that, add in, and this is your choice, it's going to be up to 1 liter of either apple juice or apple cider. If you like it with a little bit of a stronger like tongue kick, go with the apple cider. If you want it to be a little more on the mellow side, go with the apple juice. Pour a little bit of that in, mix the puree so you don't get chunks. Mix, mix, mix. Once you start getting that kind of nice and evenly distributed, pour in more juice, stir, and then just keep pouring as you're stirring. And eventually you will get something that looks like this. I will say it is phenomenal. I love this drink. You can serve it. You get the pie spice in the back. It's fun. You can serve it with some whipped cream on top. And I do not mean Cool Whip or any of that tub stuff, or especially the stuff that comes out of a spray nozzle. No. Make your own whipped cream. If you need to know, put it in the comment and I will do a recipe just for whipped cream. It's simple, and once you've made it for yourself, you will never buy that store-bought stuff again. And it's all you need is heavy cream, powdered sugar, and vanilla. That's it. Easy stuff. Okay. A lot to think about. What class do you want to be? Species do you want to think about? And then from there, start thinking about getting either a book, some dice, and print out of the character sheet. You can actually just Google a 5e character sheet and print that out, and you'll be ready to go. It will look a little bit like this. I don't know if you can kind of see it there. There's your main statistics right there. That's the new sheet. The old one, that's the one I'm more familiar with. It's, once you know how to read it, it's so much easier. Next time we'll go over abilities, what those affect. That's like acrobatics, history, sleight of hand, deception, insight. I'll talk a little bit on those. But for now, think of the class, think of the species, and get yourself some dice. I'll see you next time.